Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
I don't see something for 2023, so I think I'm going to have to make one.
There is one, and it's linked from the README on GitHub, but it's not linked from the invite.
Oh, can you post the link?
Yep, sure.
And I will post it at least in this, in the 2022 notes. Note for 2023. See.
The 2023 link is in the chat.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much, Marta.
Looks like Probe is in a different call.
Uh-oh.
I've just passed it. I guess we all had the URL from the calendar invite, right? Because that's where I found mine. But
Yep, that's where I found mine, yes.
yeah, so I think he's on a different call. So I just passed him the invite link to this call. So hopefully he'll join.
Huh.
Hi there. Welcome. I don't know what happened there. I just posted the link to this Zoom call within the working group notes for 2022 and 2023 with the hopes that everybody will end up in the same place.
Yeah, I noticed that we dropped off the Zoom calendar, so I will probably be adjusting that.
Okay. Feel free to go back and ask operations to fix whatever needs fixing. I don't know what
I
happened.
did.
Oh, okay.
You
All right.
probably have access to an email with an amazing request.
No, actually, I'm not on operations.
No? Oh, you lucky dog.
No. You want people who actually are competent in that area.
Well, then they definitely don't want to talk to me. Well, welcome to the inaugural 2023 Best Working Group Call. I am so very glad to see everybody here today after a short delay. If you could please mark your attendance, and if you have any new items you would like to discuss today, please add them under the open section. First off, as is tradition, we will not start 2023 off any different way. Do we have any new friends in attendance today that wanted to say hello and introduce themselves? Or do we all know each other already? Strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. Unless they have a van with candy, and then you just stay away. All right. Do we have a volunteer to assist in taking notes for the working group today? Oh, thank you, Avishai and Dave. Excellent.
I'll help too.
And David, thank you. All right. First off, let us see, do we have any of our sub initiative leaders here that wanted to talk about any updates for the sub projects? Like I see David has typed in a couple of small updates. Do you want to talk about
Yes.
those?
Yeah, real quick, just more FYI. For the best practices badge, we're doing some updates of various libraries, updating for Rails 6 to 7, that sort of stuff. Got somebody helping out. And for the security fundamentals course, that seems, it's continuing to be used. And we have very small updates, and I'm going to put a link to various pull requests. To see some of those things that are being either discussed or actually intended for merge there. So and if you see something that you think should be discussed, please raise an issue or pull request, and we'll look into adding that.
I have a question for you, sir, about the
Sure.
fundamentals class.
Sure.
A little birdie told me on LinkedIn that
Uh-huh.
during OpenSSF Day in Japan, we announced a new Japanese translation. I was curious, how's the uptake of that been? Have you had any comments yet?
Well, let's see. I was in Japan and I got to announce that in Japan, and you'll be shocked to know that folks in Japan thought it was pretty nice to be able to have something written in their own language. Who knew? So I think I at least in terms of just interacting personally with folks, I think it was very exciting. People were very happy about it. I do want to just give a quick heads up on the Japanese translation. In order to, many of you who are familiar with translations already know this. They froze it at a particular version in order to do the translation. So they have a slightly older version. Not hideously out of date, and it's useful, particularly if your Japanese is better than your English. This is still a good thing. But they are in the process of updating that. The plan is to bring the Japanese translation text into the GitHub repo. I'm not expecting people who arbitrary people to show up and do translations. You don't want me doing translations, that's for sure. The goal, though, is just to make sure that it's available. The current plan is to put into the same repo. I guess we could have put it in a different repo. I thought it might be easier just to put it all in one place. But so that's the current plan. I don't think we've actually done that yet. We were bumping up against the new year.
Mhm.
So, but I think that's the current plan. So, questions?
Do we have any future plans for other translations?
I know they're being discussed. I know of no plans. And if somebody here wants to turn that into an action, let me know, because you don't want me to translate to anything other than English.
Well, and you barely can do that.
Oh, in the heart.
We kid because we love.
There we go. No, and it is taken that way. But in all seriousness, we would certainly be interested in other translations, particularly those where a lot of folks don't. I think the challenge for Japanese in particular was there's a lot of Japanese speakers who are technical but don't speak English. So while I think that's true for many cultures, in some English knowledge is more common than others. So I think we're open to almost anything, but especially where it opens up situations where it wasn't even possible before. But
Okay. Excellent. Any questions or comments for David on either the badges update or the fundamentals class? Thank you again for all your efforts on both those efforts, David. We really appreciate it. Do we have any other subgroup leaders that wanted to give an update on SKF inventory or scorecard, perhaps?
Yeah, let me do a quick one on SKF. Yay. So actually, Randall, the boys, myself, we're currently still working and progressing on the new platform, basically. So we're still brainstorming and building some features, etc. Also, together with some of my colleagues at ING, we fixed around like 20, 25 labs. And for the Java and Node.js labs, we actually also pushed through the whole new styling because they were still using the old styling of all the labs. So we also put that straight, and we fixed all the write-ups, and some were missing as well. So we have now a nice working set of like 300 plus labs. Yeah, that's about it.
You know, Glenn, I don't know if we've ever talked about the discussions that you and I have had about integrating the fundamentals and SKF. Have we had that discussion here?
No,
No, okay.
We
Okay,
did
so-
touch
so-
upon it, that it will come, but yeah, it was also a holiday, so we thought, you know what, let's do something that at least we can do ourselves without the help of anybody else. So that's why we worked on the other plan, the architecture, and also fixing the labs. But we will definitely come back to you pretty soon to have that discussion. Yes.
Well, I mean, we actually have had a discussion, so let me at least raise just real quickly so
Yeah.
people know what's going on. So the fundamentals course is actually in SKF as part of it, a slightly older version because it was a hand translation. We all agree that that's not a long-term solution. So the current plan is that the fundamentals course, we're going to be embedding HTML comments to make it easier to just, you know, yank in the current version and update and link to labs. Exactly what those HTML comments will look like, don't know. In some sense, it doesn't matter. It's whatever is convenient for them. But the idea is to make it easier to integrate into the future. Okay, that's it. I mean, really, I think after that, you know, you guys can figure out exactly the format.
Yeah, indeed. That's correct.
David, and we'll actually have a specification here pretty soon of how to check in information in SKF. Fuzzy and I have been working on that quite extensively.
Nice.
Yeah, and I guess since we're all here together, I would ask, hey, you know, working on a spec is all nice as a starting point, but I would encourage as soon as possible to go sit down and try to add a few and work it out, because I've seen many specs written, you know, like many what's the old war type, you know, plans never survive after first contact with the enemy. So, you know, plans often have to get changed after you try to actually do that.
Agreed.
So
And what we're gonna,
you know,
what we have is we might have a couple different examples of how we broke it up, because we're using your course as the like guiding post, or as the initial, like, you know,
right.
use case, if you will.
Yep. So the plan is, from my vantage point, I'm just going to wait for pull requests, and as long as their HTML comments and the SKF folks are happy, we slap those in.
Fair.
You know, normal course folks won't see it, and SKF will, and life is good.
Yep.
Excellent. Any additional comments or questions for the SKF update? All right. Did Spyros or Azim or Laurent join? No. Okay. Well, I'll see about getting an update on where we are with inventory and scorecards and All-Star for the team. For the education SIG, we have mostly locked down the plan. I plan on presenting it to the TAC the second call of the month, which would be the 24th. So we have a little bit of time to make some adjustments. In the interim, there have been two interesting updates from the education SIG. First off, Jay and Christine have kicked off and are leading a DEI subgroup that's going to be focusing in on diversity, equality, and inclusion topics, particularly in the plan. They had a really great first meeting. What'd you have? About 8 folks on the call, Jay?
Yeah, we had about 8 folks on the call. Also, we had a couple of new folks that I don't believe were even members,
Right.
or even attending a lot of the working group meetings or subgroup meetings across the entire OpenSSF. So we had a couple of new individuals that came in because they heard about what we were doing, and that was exciting as well.
Yeah.
That all this fired me up.
Yeah, and all this came together in a matter of like a day and a half, and I was really excited about the enthusiasm and energy that group started off with. Dan, you had a question.
I'd like to be part of it. So let me know how I can do that, basically. Yeah.
Dan, you are a part of it. Dan, you are a part of it. I think our next meeting, I have to look at we're on the calendar. I mean, I think you just update the calendar. Somewhere on the calendar. Can't remember when our next meeting is. I do have to look at the spread over the next week or two. I'm just coming back myself, but
yeah,
at the next meeting, come on in and be a part.
and if you want to talk about what the subcommittee's kind of goals are, Jay, just real quickly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what we identified, especially with the plan, is that there's this small section about DE&I, and across the OpenSSF, across the Linux Foundation, trying to build up an initiative to target underrepresented communities, provide more inclusive initiatives around education, around how we reach out and educate, but then how we get those resources back in to the OpenSSF in general. What we said was, hey, maybe this snippet needs to be pulled out, blown up, and made its own thing, because this needs to be spoken out louder than what it is, so that these underrepresented communities and groups say, hey, they're out there. For instance, we had one individual that joined the group. She's phenomenal,
Yeah.
right? And she came out of nowhere, but she's phenomenal. Been in security, been in supply chain, she's from an HBCU, and she's like, I heard about this so I decided to join. That's the whole idea behind it. If we can have a force multiplier of that, phenomenal. But the whole idea is that we get out to the HBCUs, we get out to the smaller colleges, we get out to even high schools in some instances. We provide avenues where those educational opportunities are discovered. We provide avenues where we're identifying a lot of those individuals who want to do something bigger. And I'm apologizing because I'm going to talk and breathe at the same time. I'm actually on the treadmill.
I thought so.
But the idea is that we take this initiative, we blow it up, and we kill a few birds with one stone. One, we cover down on the Linux Foundation, the broader Linux Foundation, and those DE&I initiatives. Two, we bring it into the OpenSSF and those DE&I initiatives. And then 3, we have that impact that we want to have inside of both organizations, outward, externally, to those colleges, to those universities, to those other institutions. And then across all of our many different organizations, where we're continuing to identify, opportunities for employment, opportunities for mentorship, opportunities for education. And now we have an actual body inside of our working group that does nothing but focuses on that. Hopefully, real impact. So that's my 1 and 2 on that.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. And Jay and Christine in the group identified a handful of topics we want to try to fold back into the plan in the short term. So before the 24th, when I push that up to the TAC, we're going to be working on this comment that she put in there on how we can integrate some of these ideas back into the plan. So if anyone's interested, we will get the official meeting invite out for that sub team. Hopefully this week, if I remember, I'll do my best to remember. And then just ongoing, if you have feedback or comments, please, we're looking for help there.
All right,
And-
wait, don't let me leave. If you're interested in this, who do you contact?
Jay and Christine are the leaders of the subcommittee. And I'll push, I will get that set up in our education Git repo, and I will send a ping out to the Slack and the mailing list. And as always, everyone is welcome to come and participate. Any feedback or questions or comments about the DEI subcommittee for education? All right. And the second awesome piece of news around the education SIG is I have a task forever that one of the actions of the plan was we were going to talk to our member organizations if they had any training materials they wanted to donate to the education SIG in our ongoing education efforts. And Intel got back to me, and on the day before I stopped working, I got an inventory of all the available content Intel is going to make available that we could potentially make use of. So I have to get on the VPN after this call to look at it because it's in a SharePoint nonsense site. But once I do that, I'll be talking at the next education SIG. I'll be presenting that list so that we can kind of talk through what we're interested in focusing on. And then I'll work internally with our Intel friends. So we could have a big ingestion of new content, including contributions for our C and C++ compiler flags document, and potentially training around that we have already created here at Intel. So any feedback on that before we move on?
Yeah, I do have a question. Wait, is there a list of I guess what would be desired in terms of education? Like what exactly are we looking for? I'm pretty sure that with enough just looking around and poking and prodding and asking, you pull out a lot of stuff that we might be doing internally here at Microsoft even as well, that we can bring into the education SIG and see what we can do with maybe marry up some of the stuff from Intel with some of the stuff from Microsoft, some stuff somewhere else, and kind of blow that up a little bit. So it's, you know what I mean? Like my vision is always about that collaborative effort. So I just, is there a list that I could look at and say, hey, we're doing something like that. Let me see if I can bring that in.
Yeah, we don't have that list yet. That is a task of the plan, is to start to go and review our existing materials. So I'll be glad to I'll make sure that we keep you in the loop as we continue that conversation, Jay. And any organization that has secure development content, secure supply chain, any kind of good DevSecOps, DevOps materials, we would love to have contributions. So don't just make it about the big guys.
Yeah,
Everyone
no,
has a role to
absolutely not.
contribute.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll let you know as we get that list and we start to refine that.
Cool.
Eric.
Yeah, hey, is the plan still primarily just what's in GitHub, or is there an actual Word doc now? Because I don't see a link to the Word doc.
The
on
plan is
page.
exclusively in GitHub, at least for the TAC. That's how they desired to look at it.
Right.
And possibly when we go to the governing board, I might make it a PDF because vice presidents have a hard time with Git, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, just from a comments perspective and adding anything to make sure that I was going to the right, most up-to-date place.
Yeah. Please do any PRs or comments right in the GitHub repo, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Randall.
I know that this has come up before, but I just wanted to ask, in that Intel ask that you did, was it mentioned about being open data at all?
Haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
That there is a
asking.
team of people that does secure development training within Intel, has for like a decade, and they have a library of materials that they are able to share. So I haven't gotten the open data or anything like that yet.
Okay.
And
Thank
it'll
you.
be a combination of like job aids, PowerPoints, videos potentially.
Okay.
So we'll
I know
see.
I know that for what we distribute at SKF, I know the open data thing is a big deal. So that's why I was just asking.
I don't know that there's any blockers to make it such, but I just don't. I'm too
Yeah.
lazy to log into the VPN because it slows everything down. So I've been putting that off as long as possible. But it's 2023. I'll log in once this year.
No worries. And we're willing to help with that as well. That is part of what we've discussed that we're willing to do. So
Yeah. And what we'll do is, as the education SIG identifies interesting content that we'd like to explore more, we'll set up a sharing session. And then ultimately, like if we decide we want all the C compiler stuff to be donated, we have to go through and scrub out like Intel trademarks and whatnot before that's actually passed over. But
Fair.
that shouldn't be terribly painful.
fair. Thanks.
Welcome. Anything else? Education. All right, a quick request. Right before I left for 2022, I saw that the Open Source Summit North America call for papers is open. They will be this year in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, which is in the Great White North. That will be May 10th through 12th. And I feel very strongly that OpenSSF should be there presenting an assortment of presentations and education materials. So if anyone is interested in submitting a paper presentation, and feel free to do that on your own. If you would like assistance, I'm glad to offer myself as a resource. I do a lot of security conferences, so I'd be glad to help you refine your paper. And if anyone's interested in joint collaboration, doing a workshop, a birds of a feather session where you kind of come in and talk about a particular topic with the audience, however you're interested in, I would like to get this group, especially since we're focused in on best practices, I'd like to have us represented there talking to maintainers and developers. So the call for papers closes in about a month. And if anyone's interested in coordinating anything, I'd be glad to act as a facilitator there or give you a second set of eyes. But I will be putting something together around, I'm going to hit up Wheeler because I think I'd like to talk about the best practices badge and scorecard, how maintainers can integrate those into their activities as a more practical kind of hands-on session. But if we're interested in theory or whatever else, I think it may be an SKF session showing developers how to use SKF to embiggen their training expertise and skills. That might be another great session.
Yeah, I can do a workshop and maybe a presentation.
Awesome. That'd be great. I think that'd be very valuable.
Yeah.
And I'll be saying the same thing in every working group I'm a part of. So, but this one especially because we're focused in on helping the developers and education. I feel very strongly this group needs to be strongly represented there.
Yeah.
And by then, Glenn, the new sexy platform will be done.
Ooh.
Yes, that would be awesome.
All right. And if you're interested, feel free to talk on Slack, shout out on the mailing list, make comments on the agenda, however you're interested in engaging. I'm glad to help coordinate or assist or co-present or whatever you guys want to do. All right. Now to the actual work. Let us talk about issue 102. We have agreed that we would like to work on source code management best practices guide as our next group task. And let's see, is Gnome here? Yeah, there you are. Gnome had presented last year that his organization has put together a starter and they're interested in contributing that and how we can build from that. So I would like to discuss issue 102 and how we can move this particular little project forward. Does anyone have any thoughts on best practices for source code management they'd like to talk about?
So I have a question, the one about the how do you start such projects in this working group? I mean, like creating the repository, the generic, the structure of the doc, etc. Stuff like this.
So what we would do, since you have existing material, we would try to find some way probably to put that into our working groups repo or link to it. Maybe make a dedicated, like we did with the vulnerability disclosure guides, we made separate dedicated repos for those and linked to it off the working group. So basically we would want to get the content into a medium that the team can start to collaborate on. So if the material is already in Git, we would make a clone and start collaborating there. And we would need to figure out what the structure is. Do we want to do a lot of our documents aren't super long, so they might just be a relatively flat file. Some things might be more involved, so we might need to have a little more structure, chapters or whatnot. So that, that's kind of up to the group to decide how we want to organize this material.
Yeah. Okay. So I can share our documents. Like it's pretty structured. We have like a YAML format with all the very structured, and I can share it so you can see how to use it in the repository. And I have one concern about making it super generic. I know you talked about it in the last meeting. Just if we can raise like, how will we handle like aspects of the SCM that are very unique for each company? For example, like in GitHub, you have the code spaces. It's only for GitHub. And the GitHub Actions configuration and GitLab pipelines are very different. And I'm afraid we'll have a document with different sections for each SCM eventually, which maybe is missing the point.
What does the group feel about that? How can we approach this? Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be on I was one of the people that put their voices forward. I don't know if that's the right metaphor to say this should be, we should be trying to be vendor neutral as much as possible. I think that what I wrote in the GitHub issue last year was something like, approach that pragmatically, right? So we can't just say completely vendor neutral, technology neutral things that are divorced from the actual platforms that people are using, because that's useless to people, right? So I guess the example that came up in the last call that I think we touched on this was if we think that multi-factor authentication is a good best practice that we want to encourage, then we can, yes, right, and we all do. Then I mean, this is the reason I'm picking this is because it's very non-controversial. But like, then we can say, okay, in order to set this up, multi-factor authentication is really good because of XYZ Q reasons. Generally, it works like this. Here's how you do it in GitHub. Here's how you do it in this other thing, right? So, and I think that for the topics that we're talking about, I haven't seen the source material yet. I mean, I haven't seen, I haven't done the deep analysis on this, but it feels to me like we should be able to come up with general topics that are like that. And then, with a subsection of here's how you do it in GitHub, here's how you do it in, and if there is no way to do it in the other things, then we still can talk about it. I don't think there's any, I don't think that, at least in my mind. And I'm, by the way, I'm happy to put my time and energy into helping to organize this material and do PRs on it and stuff like that, so that we get from here to there. I also do think from a format perspective, we probably want to move things into a markdown. Is that correct? Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's the other thing that I think is a challenge that we're going to have to address with the migrating the material.
Yes, actually, we generate markdown from the YAML, so it's all. I think maybe we can like.
So is there like a build script that's built into that's built? I'll take a look at it when you.
Yeah, I'll send in the channel the links again, so you can see it. And I think we can start like make it like general, and if we get to a point where it's not balanced, like we have many ad hoc features, so maybe reconsider what is the correct way to do it.
Randall.
Pretty much everything Dan said. I was also going to say that I think GitHub, I think it was Allison in one of the calls mentioned about having a best practices guide, and we talked about having like a GitHub version. So maybe we could tie, like, I think everything Dan said is 100% true. Like, I think we stick to core concepts. I think the concepts don't change in the pipeline and whatnot. And I think that if GitHub gives us their, or if we know where their best practices is, we could just direct them there. So, yeah.
So there have been a couple people both in Slack and on the issue have expressed interest in participating on this. So what I will do is I will set up a doodle so that we can have a dedicated time for those interested to get together and kind of talk through some of these issues, and then ultimately kind of report back to the larger working group with the proposal, how they want to proceed, and we can try to herd all the cats to get this moved forward. Eric.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that was worked on in this group and others last year with a concise guide and the evaluating open source software and other documents. So some of the groundwork up front was done, right? And the best practices badge conversation for starting to think about how your application following best practices as far as this group is concerned. Something as a guideline as well, but I certainly think if we're going to schedule a meeting for that, which I most definitely want to be part of, we should make sure that we notify, and there's a lot of the same people in this group, but notify those in the repository group as well, to make sure that they're coming in for that.
That's a good add, Eric. Thank you. So first off, I will ask everyone to verify that they are on the mailing list, because that is how I will send out the doodle. And then I will send a link also in Slack. So if you aren't on the mailing list, I would encourage you to sign up. And if you aren't, please keep an eye on Slack for the doodle invite. And I will also reach out to the software repo folks. A good addition, Eric, to make sure that they are aware of this and they can participate. And then I'll explicitly reach out to like Zav from GitHub. And we used to have some folks from GitLab come here. So I'll see if I can find those contacts and also reach out directly to those individuals to get them to participate as well. Any additional comments, feedback, questions on this little project? All right, so I will toil away and get a doodle for the diversity and inclusion group sent out so that we can get the meeting times and get people plugged in with that effort. And then I will also do a poll to get a time for the SCM guide so that we can start moving forward there. And Noam, if you can either put it into the agenda, the links to the existing materials, or ping it in the Slack channel so that we can kind of take a look at that. And those of us that are interested can kind of start to wrap their heads around so we can come in hopefully start running as that first call gets started.
Just a quick note. My understanding is we are focusing on what I would call forges, GitHub, GitLab, as opposed to registries, repos for, NPM, PyPI, and so on. Obviously, there's a relationship.
Yes, the forges would be what we're focused on right now. And if there's a secondary, an appendix or an ancillary document for the other things, great, but that's not our primary focus today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And in the working notes, I put a link to our mailing list just in case you are not already there. I'll even post it in the chat.
I think I correctly put it at the top of the agenda too. I got a new format for our agenda, so I think I have it up there too. But I only have like 12 of those agendas I have to maintain, so I might have messed up.
No, you got it. You got it.
Yes.
Wouldn't hurt to have multiple links though.
Right. Randall.
Are we also moving the meetings? I know you're moving the Zoom meetings. Are we moving those to like the LFID thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
I am confident my friends in operations will inform me of how they would like to manage the call. My job is just to show up.
It seems like that's the direction they're moving from the thread that I started with Brian Bellendorf. That seems to be the direction that the LF in general is trying to move the OpenSSF calls.
I will say that we moved a few. We found some problems. We've whined and complained to LFIT to fix those. So we're hoping to deal with, the advantages of eating your own dog food is you get to find out all the problems. So we have found problems. What a surprise, I guess. So so we have whined to folks to fix those. Hopefully we'll get those resolved and then start adding a few more. But the idea is to add a few, discover the problems, whine and complain, fix, repeat.
Do we have any additional topics that folks would like to talk about today? All right, with that, I will draw to a close the first call of 2023. You will see some awesome communications about the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and the Source Code Management Best Practices Guide. And then I'll send a general email about the call for papers. And also be aware that the LF does these conferences around the globe. So they did it in Europe, they did it in Asia. So consider making your presentation portable so that potentially you could do it at multiple venues, or maybe Canada doesn't work out for you, but wherever they're going in Europe in the fall might be a better target for your presentation. Dan.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand. Will there be a OpenSSF day as part of this one, the open source?
I will give you a definite maybe.
Okay.
I don't work for the OpenSSF. I don't know their plans, but I believe based off of the feedback we've gotten at each one, they've been very popular and the foundation would like to do that. So I believe there will be a also dedicated OpenSSF day. But again, the conference itself, it has many micro conferences, like a supply chain conference. They have like a kernel day. So they have a lot of different focuses. So think about how we might be able to serve all those communities in addition to the OpenSSF day as well. So thank you all. I am looking forward to an amazing year collaborating with you all on these projects, and enjoy the rest of your day. I hope it's quiet. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.